Welcome to the Marathon Investigation Podcast, where we discuss and debate the latest news regarding course cutters, bandits, and bib mules.
Hello, welcome to the Marathon Investigation Podcast. Tonight we have Scott Coomer and Tony Portera, and we're going to just talk about whatever we want to talk about, but I want to start by talking about Bri. I'm just going to call her Bri Menzel. I think it's Bri Tiesi or Bri Tiesi Menzel, but I don't know how to pronounce her other names, so I'm just going to call her Bri Menzel. So we're going to talk about that, and then talk about back of the pack, mid-pack runners, and cheating, and why I write about it, and whether I should. We can argue that all we want. So welcome, Scott, Tony.
Hey, everybody. Hello.
All right. So I wanted to talk about, it's been a couple weeks since I wrote initially about Bri Menzel, and I didn't actually break that story. There was somebody posted on Let's Run, and this is Johnny Manziel's wife, who says she's a full-time fitness professional. She's, model, Instagram influencer, however you want to say that, Instagram model. So she's definitely in the public eye, and she had posted on Instagram that she had, without preparation, did her first half marathon and did it in 2 hours. No, not typically a big deal, but since she is Johnny Manziel's wife, somebody had looked up and noticed and posted on Let's Run that she looked at her splits. She was missing splits and would have had an incredible second half of the race if she did the entire course. It would have been 4-minute miles for the last 7 or so miles. So obviously she did not do that. She was running with her friend, who's another Instagram. She's a Playboy model and in Sports Illustrated and whatnot, and they both had the same missed split. So it's obvious they didn't do the whole half marathon. So someone on Let's Run noticed. I wrote about it. It definitely went viral. I talked about it I was on Inside Edition and talked about it. I was on the Dan Le Batard show, so it got a lot of attention. And again, mainly because it was Johnny Manziel's wife. And when questioned, she kind of doubled down and said it was for charity. She said she did the whole thing and, was kind of attacking the, shoot the messenger kind of thing. And she stood by her time, which is absurd because we know she didn't run 4 minutes per mile for the second half. So that's the angle everyone took. So I think everyone listening to the podcast probably has heard that story. So I don't need to go in to explain the splits and everything. So basically, that's the next part of the story is Rudy Novotny, who is the announcer, and he was on the podcast. He race announcer, mostly known for his work at Disney races. He had offered Bri $10,000 to donate to her charity, and that was one of her arguments, that she was, this was a charity race. How dare anybody question her time? $10,000 to her charity if she could do one 7-minute mile. And she never responded. I wrote, I was trying to communicate the offer. I got blocked on Twitter, so we haven't heard from Bri since. And she actually made her Twitter private, which for somebody who lives on social media is kind of a big deal. So, but she never answered, and she never admitted to cheating. So that's where we're at. Then I got an email on, I'll pull this up as I'm talking, on Wednesday from somebody who says, it's a short email. I can read this and I'll go into detail. This is from Chris Anzalone. And he said he read a recent post which provided my contact information. He said, I was engaged to Bri, who later claimed to be my wife in order to embezzle close to $2 million. I'd be happy to provide some insight. As I've known her for many years, I can almost guarantee that not only did she cheat, but she cheated intentionally. She has proven opportunist. I'm sure the TMZ articles are still around regarding mine and her legal dispute. Let me know if I can be of any assistance. Best, Chris Anzalone. So I went ahead and looked up the article on TMZ. Turns out Chris, he was arrested and convicted for running a $16 million investment fraud scheme. He was sentenced to 15 years in federal prison, which he emailed me from prison. And so basically he was claiming that Bri embezzled money from him, which he had embezzled from investors or whatever else. So it's just so ridiculous. But I think that is the first email I've gotten from prison regarding a cheater. And basically he's like, hey, I stole $16 million. He pled guilty, but hey, Bri definitely cheated. So yeah, so I don't know what I can do with that, but it was just the whole thing's absurd. I'm just trying to write about people cheating to get in Boston Marathon, and I'm becoming TMZ. So it's just absolutely ridiculous. So I don't know if Bri embezzled money from him, but yeah, she did have to turn some items to the FBI. I think with the engagement ring that he had given her and whatnot, she had to turn some stuff into value that she got from Chris. But beyond that,
look, well, thank goodness that we have a guy in prison for cheating to confirm that this girl cheated. I mean, without that, I don't know. I was starting to believe her.
Yeah, I thought, hey, she did 4 minute miles. Yeah, hey, thanks. I haven't responded to her. I haven't asked for more information. I probably should.
Thanks to Chris Anzalone and his email from prison. I mean, that's great that they get to use email in prison. I mean, what a blessing that is for them too.
Well, there's a whole service. Fantastic. I had to look up the IP. I'm like, oh, hey, that's the. I looked it up and it's the whole service. There's whole companies that that provide this service so they can email.
Subscribe to jail mail.
Yeah, basically. Yeah, it's basically like that. You deal with criminals, Scott. You probably know all about the.
Oh yeah, you got to create an account, and then you can. And now you're like one of their 10 people that they can talk to. So
yeah, should we have Chris on the podcast?
That's perfect.
I'd rather talk to him and talk to Bill. Who I know you don't want me to mention, but.
Well, the way I understand the story, though, is he embezzled like $16 million worth of cash or whatever it was. And he lavished her with a million plus in cars and purses and whatever it was, watches, diamond engagement rings. And I also understand she gave it back. She wasn't charged.
Yeah, she had to give it back. Yes, she had to give it back to the FBI. So the headline of the one article I'm looking at right now that I printed out was Johnny Manziel's fiance surrenders items to the FBI, and he had claimed that that the engagement ring that Johnny had given her was the one from him, but the photos show they were different rings. So it's just a whole mess. But I'm like, man, I'm just writing, I'm just writing about cheaters, but kind of the point. Like I wouldn't typically write about a 2-hour half marathoner that cheated, but again, she's a full-time fitness professional, and she's Johnny Manziel's wife. So it was a good opportunity to write about that and get some attention to this kind of cheating. And everybody's so thinks this is amazing. And as I said on the Le Batard show, I'm like, I come across this every week. I can find somebody who's claiming a 4-minute split in their results every single week. It's just not Johnny Manziel's wife every week. So.
Yeah, I mean, the thing about it though, is the cheating is the cheating, right? And if she came out and said, "Oh, I must have missed something," yeah, you're right. That's one thing, but what boggles my mind is this: it's the people that either cheat or let's even give her the benefit of the doubt. She made a mistake, and she's faced with this statistical fact that she ran 6+ miles at a 4-minute per mile pace, which would set the women's record 6 times over, right? I mean, the women's record for a mile is a 4-minute mile or something like that, right?
I think it's just above. I had that.
Just above.
Yeah.
To take a look at that and in your mind and in your head, try to defend that. I mean, the best defense would have been, okay, there's something wrong with the timing mats. My first split wasn't that.
Oh, she used. Well, no, that her defense was there was nobody checking her in at the mile marker.
Even more ridiculous.
You don't need anyone to check you in. But so she obviously wasn't aware of the technology, so I don't think she was aware of the evidence. She just thought, hey, how can anyone prove this? But looking at the course and all that, it's obvious. It's very obvious what she did, and then some witnesses. Some people said, and one thing I didn't initially consider was that when because the timing mat was on it was basically 2 laps, but there's like a dog's tail. There's like a tail there's an out and back part, about 3/4 through the lap. So they said, well, maybe she missed the out and back the first time, but hit it the second time. And kind of doing that pace, I mean, that would have been a decent, going at a decent clip and skipping less. But from hearing from people, she was, seen walking. People were passing her very early and never saw her again. So it was very clear, what happened.
She didn't look very sweaty in the picture either.
No, she did not. She looked very. They looked both of them looked not very fatigued. seems like she could have gone much faster than 2 hours if that's how they I looked after her and drinking their wine. So yeah, and skip and they got the video skipping along, and it just they were just goofing off. They're a couple goofballs.
3-hour half marathon, right?
What's that?
They were on pace for a 3-hour half marathon.
Yeah, I mean they weren't going. They were barely. I mean it was walking pace from the get go. Then I think how I calculated the last split, they did a little bit better, but yeah, it was. Yeah, it was. I think I could have beat in a legit half marathon. I think I would beat them, and I'm willing to put that out there too. Like, I'd probably put up $10,000 on that, yes, he's blocking everybody and whatnot. So it's not going there. But even with this story, people were people thought I got accused of trolling Bri, by communicating the charity, by communicating that challenge that Rudy put on and all that. And actually, I think I ended up raising more money through my through my my charity link than they raised. Well, I think they only raised $65. Her friend raised $65, for the charity that they claimed to be supporting. I think I want to say the one I did was got about $400 to $500 or something. So anyhow. Yes, so that's where it is. So it's ridiculous, and again, it's so I was getting accused of trolling her. Hey, why don't I just leave this poor girl alone? Et cetera, et cetera. And again, my point was, she's a full-time fitness professional. She has an audience. It's just I think she was deserving of the attention, and she could have very easily turned it around. And that was my thing with the charity thing. Like, hey, it's obvious you didn't do it. Make a little bit of a joke of it. Train. Maybe you can do the 8-minute, or the 7-minute mile. Maybe you can't, but you bring more attention to it, more money will get raised if that's what you're all about. And you kind of PR-wise, I think it would have been a good move for her to kind of respond, make a joke about it, and be done with it. But she chose to ignore it. So anyhow, that's where it is. So yes. So I went on to write about why I think the cheating in the back of the pack is. It's just as wrong as I write about them as just like I write about Boston qualifiers or people stealing podiums, and kind of I think we discussed this a little bit the last time you were on, Tony, where again the act of cheating is the same. Whether you're cutting the course is just kind of a result. And I think sometimes it's accidental. People might cut a course and they just so happen to have age group awards, or they just cut a little bit later and they end up with no award. But it's still the same. It's still the same action. So I think it needs to be addressed. And I don't typically call out the average person who's cutting a course for a 5-hour marathon time or a 2.5-hour half marathon time. But I do write about it, just not specifically. So. Kind of in your thoughts, Tony, as far as the degrees of cheating, and Scott too. It's do you think we should call out all these runners equally, or none at all, or what kind of your thoughts on the back of the pack course cutter versus someone cutting to the Kelly Agnews of the world, or somewhere in between?
Go ahead, Tony.
No, look, the act itself, as we said, is the act, right? The cheating is cheating. I mean, in life, there's varying degrees of everything, right? Like if you speed, you're cheating in a certain way, and then we have various fines for if you're 5 miles over, 10 miles over, 120 miles over, right? So we have different levels of that, and the same thing goes with other criminal types of activities, right? There's different penalties, greater, some greater than others, for different levels of what you do. So, the act itself, though, cheating is cheating. I don't think there's a difference whether you're in the front of the pack or the back of the pack. If you cheat, you cheat. The question is, of course, like, what's the big deal, right? That's what everybody asks, right? Because I did see some posts, I think, on one of the Facebook sites in your latest article that you had, where the guy took a bib, I guess, and ran, where is it, like overseas, like Australia or something like that?
I think I screwed it up in the article, but it was oh gosh, where the heck was it? It was Scotland. So basically, with that one, like so basically, this guy, his friend couldn't run. His friend was Paddy, he's an Irish guy, and then this other runner took his bib and ran, and then he posted on Facebook that, hey, I picked up the bib. I had to use my best Irish accent to get the bib. But then he had a picture of himself with a plaque for finishing third in the age group. And that age group was an older age group than his. So it's not like they just were both in the same age group, and maybe that would be less of a big deal. I don't think it makes any difference. But basically he stole an age group award and took the picture and pretended to be Patty and and joked about it on Facebook. So people still are saying what's the big deal there? But he
people say what's the big deal? But the reality is like I was just watching some news show, one of the nitty opinion shows the other day, and they were talking about the larger the big college admission scandal that just came out, and the point that was being made on the show had to do with what options you have to cheat and what you would do in that certain situation. But one of the points they made is like we as human beings have this biological revulsion to line cutting, right? We're programmed to be disgusted by people that don't get to the finish line or get to where they're going in the right way, right? So to me, the person that cheats and takes a podium spot is just as guilty as cheating as the person who cheats just to finish, right? I mean, the act itself is cheating. And there are many people that I know, and a good example is that Badwater race where they had the person that was accused of cheating, and she finished almost dead last. But it meant something to other people that she did not get to that finish line in the right way. So I think, people have different opinions on it. To me, cheating is cheating. And in the end, the people who are in the middle of the pack, at the back of the pack who cheat, they still have to go home at night. And they have their medal or they have their buckle or they have whatever they have. And I just don't get, because I couldn't even picture myself coming home and putting my buckle in my buckle box knowing that I didn't finish the 100, or putting my medal in my little bag knowing I didn't finish a marathon or a half marathon. Like, I know I didn't do it. So what's the point ultimately?
But that's you.
That is me.
I mean, I guess to me, like I think about there's like two issues wrapped up in this. First, I agree with everyone that's cheating is cheating. It doesn't matter, in terms of whether or not what the person did is right or wrong doesn't change based on their ability, where they placed, how they finished, whatever they're doing. None of that should matter. But I think that what I always look at it as is, if the person is caught cheating, what sort of, retribution should there be? What sort of attention should be brought to the fact that they cheated? Now, this Johnny Manziel girl who makes a living off, look at me on Facebook, and look what I'm going to do, and I did this half marathon, and I'm this great person. If she cheats, I think you can treat her like if the winner cheats, and I think that it's newsworthy. I think it's something that people might be interested in, and I think that and I don't have as big of a problem with you writing about that. Again, let's say that I cheat and I finish, in a 4,565th place, instead of, 5,384th place, because I accidentally cut, or intentionally, let's say, cut 3 miles of the course. Do I deserve to have the wrath of Marathon Investigation?
Well, as podcast star that you are, I would say you probably do.
Setting aside the fact that I'm an internationally famous podcaster.
Absolutely.
But and I have written about you, Scott. So
yeah, well, let's just pretend. And the funny thing about that is there was a guy that doesn't necessarily like me in the winter world who took that article within seconds, pasted it in the Arrowhead 135 group, and said, "I told you this guy was bad, and you guys listened to him." And everyone was just like, "That's a funny article." Anyway.
Well, but let me ask you this question, though, Scott. Though let me ask this question about this Bri person, right? Does it matter if the cheating to you? Does it matter if it's really relevant, right? So, like, I agree with you. She's this public person, right? And she's unfortunately involved with Johnny Manziel. She probably makes more money than him at this point now because he's now in that new AAF or whatever the heck it is. But does it matter that it's relevant, right? So let's say she absolutely 100% cheated here, didn't make a mistake or nothing, and forget about what she doubled and tripled and quadrupled down with afterwards. Would it make a difference to you if she was a running coach who advertised on her website that that's what she does? She's a runner, she's an elite runner, and look what she just did. She finished this half marathon and she won. She cheated to win, and she ran 4-minute mile for the last half of the half marathon. Versus what she actually is, right? She's an exercise person. She's got some book out. I think didn't she say something about this was her first half marathon and whatnot? She's twiddling around on the video with her Playboy friend and whatnot. Does it matter to you? Is there such thing as relevant cheating as far as being in the public eye and making a big deal about it?
I don't think that I'm going to whether it's relevant or not. I think I'm going to whether or not we need to shine a bright light on it as an example of bad behavior. And I think that light can shine really bright if it's, Jillian Michaels or Vinnie Tortorich or this lady who spends her, she butters her bread by saying, look at me, look at me, look at me, and getting likes and raising money and attention. But I think if let's say that me and my other obese slow friend do a marathon together, and I think that he cut 1 mile off of it, and I rat him out to Derek, does he deserve to have an article that goes viral on Facebook about that? Probably not.
And I would never write.
I'm not saying that he's less wrong. I'm not saying that what he did is any better than what this girl did. But what I'm saying is I think that I'm really uncomfortable with spotlighting bad ethical decisions by people who aren't contenders and who aren't living their life in the public eye. Like that LaToya Snell, fine. She, go ahead, write whatever you want about her. All she does is say, look at me, I'm a professional athlete. But if it's, some guy who just made a bad decision who's not, famous or, putting himself out there or anything like that. And then I guess that's the ultimate other question. And that's this, does it detract from my experience and do we really care? Do I really care if Joe Nobody does the Chicago Marathon, cuts half of it, and finishes in 4 hours and 50 minutes? Not really. I really don't care.
I don't care either.
But I think that we have a tendency, and this is kind of like your Badwater example, to say, but wait a second, my Badwater finish was the defining moment in my life. It's what makes me a badass. That medal on my wall is something that I'm proud of. And when someone cheats and they get that same result, they detract from my accomplishment and they belittle it, and it doesn't mean as much. And to that, I say bullshit too. It means as much to you as it meant to you that you accomplished what you did. And the fact that somebody, bought it on eBay, cheated, or did whatever, doesn't change your accomplishment, your award, and what it means to you.
I disagree with that a little bit. And again, I won't write. Again, I try everything I can to, I think as Bri, hey, maybe somebody who was going to cheat to a 2-hour half marathon might make somebody think twice. Hey, this guy's out, somebody who maybe isn't in my target, who knows about me, knows about the site. They may, so that probably, I'm sure there's a couple people who got dissuaded from possibly cheating or cutting a course because of how, because they heard about that article and heard about Bri. It's like, so I'll kind of shine the light on the people who I feel, deserve it, the public people, to try to dissuade, to try to do what I can, to clean up in the, the back half of a marathon. I'm not going to write about, your friend who cut 1.5 miles off of a marathon, for a couple reasons. One, I agree with you. I said, I've become a victim of a little bit of my own success. If I write about that guy, he's going to know about it. His friends are going to know about it. His whole, it's going to turn his life upside down for cutting in 1.5 miles off, off a marathon one time. I can see the, okay, is that appropriate, reaction? Is that appropriate punishment? Probably not. And then B, why would I write about him when when I'm not writing about, I would just pick him out of a hat where I have 100 more just like him every week. So, I can't, so there's nothing, so I have to find the ones that stand out, write about the people who I think are, where it's obviously it's intentional or they've cheated at, a dozen races, so maybe you might have an average guy, but if your friend, cut courses every year for the last decade and is doing it in multiple races, and then that may be a little different. But again, just from a kind of a time standpoint, like I said in the article, I could write articles every day about people cutting courses, back of the pack, and call them out and do all that, and I can have, I could probably do half a dozen articles every single day for until the end of time, but it just doesn't make sense. So I'm not going to write about that person, but it doesn't mean I think they're a whole lot better, and I can definitely see the kind of the accomplishments tainted, especially, again, this probably is me personal within the ultra world, because really, if somebody finishes a 100-miler, that's kind of the accomplishment in itself. Finishing at the times, it gets me to the tops, and you guys would know this better than me, but it's like, hey, I did Badwater. Finishing's the accomplishment. People aren't going to ask you the first question if you're in your office telling isn't going to be, hey, what was your time? Well, wow, you did 100 miles, fantastic. That's unbelievable. So I think finishing like in an ultra like that is, to me, probably because I haven't done it, is a big deal. And anybody's cheating, just to finish, it would be a big deal. And then there's other people, finishing marathons. Just finishing is a huge deal, huge life accomplishment. And if you have people, going around and saying, oh yeah, I did that, no training, I did a marathon, no problem, when they really didn't, it dilutes it a little bit, and it pisses the person off who.
How does it dilute it? I don't understand what you mean by that. Like, I went and I ran the Potawatomi 100 miler. I got the 100-mile buckle. Tony comes this year, cuts the course every loop, runs 5-mile loops instead of 10-mile loops, gets the 100-mile buckle, tells everybody that he ran it too, and he ran faster than me. How does that change my experience, my award, and my memory in any way?
It absolutely does. It deletes. I mean, your actual memory at the event, no, it wouldn't change it in any way. But again, you got the people who do this. That's their life accomplishment. And then if you have, say you had 10 Tonys, in a race, and then all of a sudden, if these 10 people did it, it must not be that big a deal. If everybody's able to do it, must not be that big of a deal. Where it is a pretty damn big deal. So I think it definitely kind of deletes when you got, you're finishing a marathon, or like Mexico City, that's, might not be the best example. We got, 5,000 people cheating in a race. The people who actually completed that race, first of all, it cast a shadow on them. Well, did they really do it? Everyone cheated at that race. So I mean, that's, probably the most obvious example. Anybody who legitimately completed the Mexico City Marathon in 2017 and 2018, their accomplishments diluted because there were literally, thousands of cheaters at that race. So if you tell somebody, hey, I completed Mexico City, in the back of their mind, I'm like, yeah, did you really? So it's, to some extent, in varying degrees, I think it definitely, everyone wins a medal thing, when you got races giving medals to everybody, and, whether they finished or not, it makes, people that, really earned it, it dilutes it a bit. Again, it's not the end of the world. It may not be the biggest, if I had to prioritize, my focus and, what's important, it's not going to be at the top, but I still think it's a thing.
I'm not so, see, like, for me, in my perspective, is I don't think it would dilute what I did, because to me, that's personal. Completely. I mean, it's a different story if they take away a money prize or a first place or a second place or a third place. Right? To me, that's a little bit different, because they're taking away an experience from somebody else that would have had that experience, and they are missing out on that experience. Whether it's in a award ceremony or in the paper or whatever that is.
Or a spot in Boston or an age group award or something like that.
Or that too. Well, for me, I think the way I would describe it is, it wouldn't dilute my accomplishment knowing that somebody else cheated just to finish or cut the course just to finish. Because I would have the same experience. And by the way, just because there's no article out there or no DQ that somebody cheated doesn't mean somebody didn't cheat. I might not know about 5 other cheaters that nobody ever knows about because they cheated very well and nobody was able to catch it. But to me, it would probably annoy me. I think that's a better word. It would be like, oh, these guys, what the hell are they doing? Obviously, these two cheated over here. But I think I would move on and get over it, because to me, it just wouldn't take away from my own personal experience at the event, because I would just consider them a bunch of muppets and knuckleheads and just move on from it.
Yeah, I get that. Maybe the better, it kind of, maybe it would dilute. And if this is a big deal to some people, as we see with social media, it may dilute other people's perception of your accomplishment. maybe a better thing if, especially in cases where you have, the mass cheaters, or it's, or think about it, you're at the, go back to the proverbial water cooler in the office. Hey, I did a marathon, and you got the guy coming up who's, who always needs to one up you and, tells the stories, and, oh, yeah, I did one too, and I did it in, I did it in 2.5 hours, well, and people believe that. So, I mean, so on that kind of level, and take that to Facebook, and again, to a little bit, I think it dilutes, maybe a better way to say it is dilutes other people's perception of, of the accomplishment or of the marathon, and it's not, it's not the highest on my list, but if I can, do something to try to dissuade, even those back of the pack cheaters or mid pack cheaters, I will. But again,
there's a way to do that, and that's to do what you do with some of the races that you partner with, and just, you don't have to write an article, like you said, about every guy that finishes in 1,242nd place, and you can figure out that they cut 5 miles out of the course. But, some of those races that you work with directly to identify people that actually didn't do the course, didn't finish, or bid muled, or weren't registered for the race and actually finished and took stuff from the race. I mean, you're not publicly outing them, but they'll be disqualified.
I've written a lot of general,
and that I think is a great way to do it.
Yeah, and so I do think it's a big deal. But even when I wrote the article, I've never, like the Disney articles, generally those are pretty generic articles. Like, hey, I found, there are 200 people who missed this match, at the Out and Back, and and I'll write some specific examples. The guy who obviously took the monorail, or has done it multiple years, multiple times. The family who's all cheated together for multiple years. Even then, I didn't name them. And I didn't hear from those people, although I did hear from one person who I didn't even name or identify, but who was pretty upset and threatened a lawsuit, and of course that never happened. But yeah, so I try to write more of those in general, just to say, hey, put it out there, hey, people are cheating at this level, hey, you shouldn't do it, and maybe do I maybe go a little bit overboard on the hey, is you're diluting everyone's accomplishment, and people do feel that way because. Unfortunately, a lot of people don't just do it for themselves. It's so much of this, as we learn, is about the social media and the likes and all that, and it pisses them off when you find anybody saying they completed a marathon when they didn't. So
right, I understand. I'm also putting like a little exception in there when Mr. 1,242nd is, I don't know what you would call it, like a person that puts their life out in the media and tries to inspire people, or tries to draw attention to themselves. If that's what lane you're in, then I don't have a problem with someone calling you out if you're a hypocrite or a liar or a cheat. I'm just talking more about when that person is just someone that for whatever reason didn't do what they're supposed to do.
Let's go to
backlash.
We'll go to a little bit of a real life example, Scott, and I won't name this person, but you know who I'm talking about. Although I'm probably writing an article on her within the next couple of weeks. From Tunnel Hill, the runner that you're, were aware of. That I think we found 3 people, never saw her on the second half of the course. She missed all the timing mats in the back half of the course. She said she did 100 miles. It wasn't a particularly fast time. I can't remember what the finish time initially was.
I think it was 25-ish.
Yeah, so it wasn't, so it wasn't. She wasn't winning. She wasn't taking anything. But this is one that you're kind of ended up being kind of directly involved in, because you had this person who was on your podcast, you knew who she was, so and you questioned her on that, and I questioned her on it and everything else. And so what do you think? There it seems, at least from kind of our discussions, that you feel like she would be worthy of being called out. Maybe I'm misreading that, but again, she's she's not. Again, she may have. I don't know if she might be an ambassador for a company or two, but she's not making her living, from this. Although it seems like she's trying to, kind of get some traction in the industry. But what are your feelings on her in particular?
I think that's it's a fringe case. Like, it's right on the edge.
Explain it though.
Sure.
So, is it in 100?
Right. So the Tunnel Hill 100. And I don't know if you're familiar with it. It's pretty flat, fast. I think it's 4 25-mile out and backs. Is that right, Derek, I think?
Yes.
Okay. And so there's a girl in my community that's been on my show that went out and did that race, and who, let's just say, has a couple of questionable things in her past. Well,
really just one. The other one, I think, is it was minor. But yeah, there was another race that's definitely questionable.
Well, there's one race where she's on social media bragging about how she finished the 15K, but if you look in the results, she only ran the 5K. And then there's another result where she ran a 50-miler. She's listed as a 50-mile finisher, but she really only went 50K.
I don't think she went 50K.
Yeah,
even that time, her 50K time, I think, was.
So she ran like a 7-some-odd 50-miler, and they, or 50K, and they put her in the 50-miler. That's her story anyway. So anyway, there's these 2 red marks. She's got 3 different aliases on Ultra Sign Up. Nobody knows this girl's name. It's like always different, like kind of moving target. Anyway, to make a long story short, she's doing the Tuttle Hill, and because I have so many friends and so many people in my community that I follow, I'm watching all the people that I know at Tuttle Hill. You've tracked a race before. There's 10 people that you know, and you're just checking out how they're doing. And this girl was on like about 30-plus hour pace coming into the halfway point. She is a first-time 100-miler, and she's close to the cutoff.
What was her 50-mile split? What was her split 50 miles?
Derek, do you know? I think it was like 14-something.
Yeah, I'll see if I can pull it up while you're talking.
She's close to the 14s, and her last split was like 47.
I know it would have
miles,
been.
50.
She would have like a 2.5-hour negative split, I think. If her, kind of jumping ahead.
She had
do the math for you.
A 14-hour first half and a 12-hour second half. Is that what you?
No, she had a 14-something first 47 miles.
Right.
So it was probably more than that. And then she negative split it by about 4 hours.
No way.
Her first 100, no pacer.
No way.
Conveniently lost her bib, so she didn't have any timing. And then, and by way of background, I'm tracking all these people. And then I said to the 10 Chuck Miles gang, I'm like, well, put a fork in her. She's done. She's not going to rally back from this. And then the next morning, she's posting on Facebook, I'm going to be finishing in about 3 hours. And I thought, first of all, how is she still in the race? Second of all, who knows they're 3 hours from their first 100-mile finish line? No one. I mean, maybe 3 miles, maybe 10 miles, but I'm 3 hours from finishing? That's kind of strange to say. So she ends up finishing, and all the people that she was 2 hours behind, she's now 3 hours ahead of at the finish. And these are solid runners that I've known for years that have done multiple 100-milers. And I'm looking at the result, and I'm like, there's no way that that's true. There's just nobody negative splits their first 100-miler, period.
Where'd she end up? Well, forget about negative. Well, people can certainly negative split, but to me, like.
By 4 hours?
Well, no, not by 4 hours. I was going to say, because I've looked at, I've looked at these, because part of it I do when I run hundreds is I set many little goals, right? And for me, like, the best split that I ever did in 100 was about an hour difference between the first half and the second half.
And what number 100 was that?
It was quite a while.
Yeah.
Multiple, right? And it was at Umstead, I believe, right?
This chick just ran like a 5-hour marathon,
Generally, if you do everything right, if you're a middle of the pack person, if you do everything right, a good split to me, if you're a middle of the pack person, is about a 2-hour difference between your first half and your second half. So if you can run a 10, you would nail it if you ran a 12 in the second half, right?
Exactly. I have her
22 hours.
Here. So we had the 47-mile time. I think I had, I estimated her times at 13 hours and 40-minute first half, and I had an 11-hour second half. Because she had 24.
What was her final time?
24 hours and 40 minutes even, because they had to manually put in her. So she had 24 or 40. So I showed it as a 2-hour and 40-minute negative split.
And this is a girl that's never broken a 5-hour marathon, probably.
Right.
There's a Tunnel Hill 100?
Yeah.
Was it last December, was it, or is it November?
November.
Yes, last December.
I think, was it November? It was November.
Yeah, November. So anyway, I end up, I say to Derek, no, don't do anything. I reach out to this person. I say, listen, you've been on my show. I like you. I'm sure there's a good reason for this, but I think you should just jump on the sword right now and just say, I screwed up. I only did the 50 and be done with it. And she doubled down. And she keeps posting on Instagram, and she keeps posting, and everybody knows that she cheated in the whole
thing. And she's posting, hey, I need a GPS that lasts more than, I think she even said miles. Did she? Like, even have a GPS that lasts more than 40 miles? Well, no, again, it's the time. It's not.
And so I think what put this back on Derek's scoreboard is someone else contacted him and said, enough already with this girl. With she's a cheater. We all know she's a cheater. She's a liar, and she's out there saying that she, finish this race still.
Yeah, and she's training for more, and she's getting ready to, do more. And the funny thing is, today she was, on Facebook for one of the backyard races, the one in Ohio. She put, she showed up as being, she just joined that group. I don't think she's registered for it, but I don't know if she's on the wait list, and that's a whole other thing. But yeah, so it's that. She's registered for a couple races, and one of them would be, it's a 24-hour race, which we've talked about how easy if those can be to to cheat. Although I think people are looking out for it more. So it's like, okay, how can we stop this behavior? I feel kind of like David Crockett when he was on our podcast. Is like, hey, I'm just we're trying to stop her from cheating again, but she's not admitting it. I don't think it's going to be done quietly. Because she had sent me initially the race wasn't going to disqualify her. They're like, hey, she sent us photos, and hey, based on these, she shows her on the back half of the course. We're going to leave her in the results. The runner had sent me the photos. It was just like they could have been taken any time. Almost any. They weren't. And Scott, I think you saw the photos. They definitely weren't evidence of anything. It's like, yeah, she was on the. I mean, it was like probably right before she finished, so maybe, if she hopped back on the course, a couple miles, before the finish, whatever, because I think the half, I don't know if there's a half, there are different races. So some of the other runners were there, from one of the different races where, it just didn't prove, anything at all.
But my bottom line on this is I would probably lean towards no, don't do the story. I think that, this is obviously someone that's got some problems, and this is someone that wasn't competitive, and someone that isn't necessarily famous, although they spent a lot of time trying to boost their social medias. But if you do it, I'm not going to feel sorry for the person, because they had every opportunity to come clean, and they only made it worse for themselves. They just couldn't let go of the story.
Yeah, and I'm still I emailed her just last week, said. Basically, I mean, I knew, from the race that she was, that they finally, after, giving the information again, they finally said, okay, yeah, we're going to move her. She's in the 50-mile result now. They didn't have any question that she hit all the splits leading up to 50 miles. I believe she probably did 50. I believe she did 50 miles, and then, was basically done. So they put her in a 50-mile result, so they didn't disqualify her, but they moved her. So I emailed her asking her what happened, and then she sent me the same the email from the race director, saying why, and basically the race director referenced, hey, you have to have your bib on at all times, and so it was kind of like she was leaning towards, let me say, hey, she got, removed on technicality, because her bib, her GPS wasn't working, and she didn't have the bib, and her story was that she changed, I believe she changed her clothes after, at the 50-mile checkpoint, or 47, wherever that checkpoint was, and she left her bib and went off the second half without her bib, that it was on her, the pants that she changed out of. So that's what her story was, as to why she wasn't registering on the second half, that she had to change her clothes and she left her bib behind.
What time did they give her for a 50-miler? Because they only had a 47-mile split. So what did they give her for a 50-miler?
And I had to look at the... not sure exactly. I mean, I think it was the whatever that last split was. Was it a 47? Yeah, because she had the the only split she had was a 47-mile split, or the last split she had. So
13:34:43 they gave her.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's another
13:44:43.
13:34:43.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
So how do they know that? If she only did 47 miles.
Good question. I had to look at that.
I mean, so And then what's the point? What's the like? Okay, so what's the point? Is this one of those races where you can register for both races and you decide what you want to finish? Is this one of those nonsense?
I think this is a race where if you drop, you get a finish in the 50.
Oh, for Lord's sake!
Yeah.
I mean, never. We don't have to get into that one. That's fine. But I mean, so you can drop. So she cheated in the 100, and it was bad enough where they said this is right. We're going to drop you to the 50. God, why give her anything? I don't understand why you would give her anything.
They were hesitant to disqualify, to move her from the 100. It took a few emails and come into their senses, and I think there may have been a difference, with the between the timer and the race director, so there may have been a little bit, going on there, but I think they. I didn't have at the time. I didn't have that much of an issue with that because again, I don't think they believed 100% that she didn't do the 100, despite the split times. And they were telling me it was only a half-hour negative split, so I was trying to argue the math with them, and it was, it was kind of, it was kind of a ridiculous argument. So I think, I finally got across to them that, when they realized, yeah, she didn't likely do it, but I think they were just trying to. I don't know, but yeah.
Well, according to their results, she 2-hour negative split her first 100, and that I've never met anyone that's ever done that.
Yeah.
And this girl's not.
Oh, and I think she said, she walked and she knew she was going to run faster the second half, and that's why she changed out of her. It was all absurd.
There's about 6 people that I know that didn't see her. Past them.
Right. I think we have 3 people who are willing to go on record, with that. Who I.
Yeah. So
at least 3.
I'm
anyhow, so I agree. That's typically borderline. I mean, since you had brought it to me, and I had other emails after that on it. But I'm like, all right, well, they moved it. Let's just let it go. But yeah, she's not admitting it. She kind of posts just kind of stupid stuff on on social media, like photoshopping herself into a photo with showing or with. Tiesi finishing the Boston Marathon, and like it just kind of oddball stuff, and her training plan for 100 miles. And I don't know if you've seen. I mean, her latest training that she's saying she's doing is pretty substantial miles, and so now I'm kind of questioning that. It's like, okay, is she really running these miles she's saying she's doing? So I'm really curious to see her next race result.
There you go.
All right, so that's that's another one. But again, she's not winning anything. But again, with kind of thing about cheating in this, you don't know at what point does somebody over cheat, and all of a sudden next thing you know they're on a podium. So say, yeah, don't call this person out, they're not winning anything, but okay, they didn't this time, but hey, they got away with it. What's to say next time they're not gonna not gonna take that next step and try to.
And then one last thing I wanted to ask about is I read your article on Japan, Tokyo, and you didn't point this out, but I don't know if you know that Hoka professional athlete Latoya Snell got cut off at that 10K mark too.
Yep, yeah, she did, and she didn't. No excuse. Okay, give a little bits of credit where you can. Yeah, I didn't hear. She didn't complain about it or anything else. She just didn't do it. So
but these people, they didn't hit the 10K in 1 hour and 40 minutes, and that's why they got cut off.
Yep.
That's a lot of time.
It depends. I make sure. I'm gonna have that in front of me. But with the, I think with that's accounting for the that when they actually started in the later waves. So it's I know it's a little bit tighter. They say I think it's a 7-hour cutoff overall, but it is tighter at the front part of the race. So people thinking, I'm on 7-hour pace, but they didn't pay attention to the first, the initial splits. You had to be a little bit better than a 7-hour pace. You didn't have to be going particularly fast. But it's it was, I think that but the cutoffs were, it wasn't it's based on when they got to close the roads, so it wasn't a consistent pace like like you see in the Disney races and all that, where you got to just make sure you're going 15 16 minutes a mile the whole way and you're fine. It's a little bit different.
Comrades does that. They only give you 12 hours and it's gun time, and they don't give a shit where you start. So like if I start, like the last time I started in like the H corral. Took me 20 minutes to start. Now I only got 11 minutes and 40 seconds to finish,
Wow. How many people are in that race?
17,000. It's the biggest ultra in the world.
Yeah, that's crazy. But but Japan, that guy. And then I done a little bit more, learned a little bit more about him, and there's more. Yeah, that guy apparently, know somebody who knows him, and he's a little bit out there. So yeah, but again, that's somebody again who he wasn't obviously. I'm writing about somebody missing a cutoff. So I didn't write about him because he missed the cutoff and then decided to cut the course. I wouldn't have known about him if he didn't go apeshit on the video.
Yeah.
So yeah, and even then I did, and people figured out who he was because on the YouTube video that I linked, somebody called him out, and before I even wrote the article. So so people figured out who this guy was, and eventually, it took him a number of days before he started taking. He was getting ripped on his Facebook page and everything else. Eventually, he got wind of that and locked it down a little bit. But the video was. And there's probably more to that video too, because you post onto videos on Twitter, it just kind of cuts you off at so far, and the video cut off at a point where I wouldn't have expected somebody to stop taping. This guy was going nuts. Again, he was mad about being missing the cutoff. And then on Facebook, he's talking about, hey, we don't get any credit for our potty breaks. Like he was expecting him to pause the clock because he's.
I remember that video. That was a good video.
Yeah, it was. but he took waited a half an hour in line. So he lost that, and he's wearing his not the Vaporflies, what the hell, the Nike 7. He's wearing those shoes, and so.
That was a great video. That reminds me of those videos you could go see on YouTube, those public freak out compilation YouTube videos on YouTube where you see just people just ranting and raving all over the place.
Yeah.
That guy was good.
Oh, yeah.
Now they just call that Facebook.
A little out of control.
And I almost did there was stuff. There was stuff where I almost did a follow-up. I'm like, I'm done with it. But he was a little bit, he was out there. So, again, that's another one, get a chance to talk about cutoff times, make sure you're aware of them. So it's something that's entertaining and worthy in its own right, but something I can use to try to be educational in a way. So kind of the same thing I'm getting ready to write about. It was right after we published the podcast, with Davey, talking about Kelly Agnew's cheating and what races should do to to improve on that. I was getting play-by-play of two people, who were doing the same exact thing at another 24-hour ultra, or 48 hours actually. I think one runner was in the 24, one was in the 48, but doing the same exact thing, hiding out in tents, crossing the start finish, going to their tent, waiting a little bit, and then going back, crossing again. So there are two people doing that in the same race. So I think it's probably more common than a lot of people realize. So I'll probably write on that. I'm not sure I want to call those people out, but the one runner was banned. Was retroactively removed from results of probably a half dozen races. And
did that person win anything, or that person just?
Well, he got that person was caught. It was witnessed on the course. They pulled him from the course. There was so that was a male runner. There's a female runner doing the 48 who was witnessed throughout, and they just. I didn't get the full story from the race director, but he seemed to think there was something else going on that was extenuating, so they didn't treat her the same way. But I don't think he actually witnessed her doing this. And then once she knew she was being observed, there are people just videotaping in her tent, basically. I think while she was there, then she kind of then she started doing it legit and slowed down significantly from there. And so they left her in the results with which. Again, I don't think it's a legitimate result because her timing pattern shows. So basically, what was happening, she would do a legitimate lap, go in her tent, gain an extra lap during that time, and then do a legitimate lap. So you would see, she was doing her legitimate laps for around 18 minutes per mile. So it was going 18 minutes, 12 minutes, 18 minutes, 12 minutes, 18 minutes, 12 minutes. So you're just seeing that every, it seemed like it was a definite pattern. And again, you can see maybe that's somebody's strategy, but I have photos and timestamp and of her sitting in the tent during the quicker laps. So it was pretty clear. I'm not quite sure I didn't get the full story as to what the circumstances were there, but again, that's one race.
So they gave her a result anyway.
Yeah.
They gave her a result.
Yeah, they left her. They left her in the result. I never got
why.
Full. I don't know. I could never quite get the full explanation on why they treated her that way. Again, I don't think the race director himself saw that, but he, when I asked him about it, he didn't deny that she did. He just said they thought she had some kind of medical issue, but I'm not sure why that would. It doesn't make sense to me.
So?
Yeah, I'm not sure. Yeah, I don't know what would. Yeah, I'm not sure what would justify what medical issue could justify that. And again, and she was witnessing like from the first night. I mean, I was getting messages, from somebody was at the race and witnessing this happen. So yeah, so I'm not really sure. So that's just kind of one. I'll keep an eye on that person and and the other guy. And then there's I talked about briefly how the one runner was showing up on the list of one of those the backyard ultras. If you guys are Tony, I'm sure you guys are probably familiar with those with that format. And there's dozens of these now. Went from from Laz's race where basically you have an hour to do 4.1667 miles, and you got to do that start every hour on the hour. The runner shortly after Kelly Agnew, who was disqualified from Rocky Raccoon, like a couple months later. I think he's registered for one of those races, and kind of brought the attention. If somebody's cheating at that, that affects like the whole winter. Because if somebody's really cheating, doing a good job at that, they would extend the race for for whoever. So hopefully, I think it'd be harder to get away with it in that format. I think other competitors would notice, but I'm keeping an eye on one of those races where somebody who was a known cheater is registered. So
well, nobody accused me of cheating at the Badwater Cape Fear, I'll tell you that.
What was your finish time?
Like 13:05. I was going for 14, which was the cutoff, the full value of the event, but I came up a little short and finished early.
It's a hard race, man. That race is hard.
Dude, it was deceptively hard. Like running on the beach with the tide and the sometimes it's hard sand, sometimes it's the sand that you're falling into, and
I hate running on sand. Running on sand's tough. It's tough.
It was 40 miles of running on sand.
It's not that. Yeah, I don't care for. I mean, I have, but and usually it's not flat. You're like kind of like angled up a little bit from the. Yeah, it's.
Well, you got to kind of play a game with it, like he's talking about with the tide, right? So like the closer you can run to the water where it's a little bit harder packed, right, and it's not as sandy, the better. But as that tide starts coming in and it pushes you further and further up the shore, it becomes even more difficult.
Yeah. Well, next up for me, too, is crewing for Tony at the Badwater Cape Fear, so...
Oh, we didn't release that yet. There was no press release on that.
So I'll be driving around all night watching him suffer.
Nice. I gotta figure out what races. All of a sudden, like the Flying Pig's coming up. It's like I had my streak going really well, but as I told you, Scott, once I stopped running, then I was going to be done. So that's pretty much what happened. I went like 40 some days in my streak from the beginning of the year. Then I just then I missed a day, and then I missed. I turned into more days, and so so my running's been light over the past month. So I need to ramp it back up. I'll still be in better shape than I was last year for for my first marathon. So that'll be my baseline. We'll see where I'm at.
I'm getting ready to ramp up. I did 100K last weekend. I did 51-mile race this weekend. I'm doing 50K this weekend up at the Badger Trail. Then I'm doing a 50K the next weekend. I have a weekend off, then 100K, then a weekend off, then the Strolling Gym, then a weekend off, then the Keys 100, and then I go to Comrade. So I'm going bang, 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 bang all the way down.
I'm looking for a 48-hour. I want to do because I like the slow amount. I may do since I'm 48. I may do race for the ages because I got 48 hours is my age.
The Milwaukee race up in the Dome.
Do you work, Scott? How do you do all this stuff?
Oh yeah, I worked. Dude, we drove out Friday. We drove out Thursday night. I just took off Friday. We came back on Sunday night. I was back in the office on Monday.
You're giving me a ride out to Salton Sea, right?
No, I'm flying on that.
I'm flying. I'm meeting you at the airport, right?
Oh yeah, I'll drive you to the desert.
Everyone's finding this fascinating. So but I think the Dome's sold out, isn't it? Initially, I was thinking about the 6-day. I know the 6-day sold out. I'm not sure about the 48-hour.
That sold out pretty fast.
Yeah. It did. Before I'm like, maybe that'd be kind of cool to see what I can do.
You can beg your way into it. You'll let you in.
Joe, he probably would, but it's. Well, hell, I'm like unemployed now. I can't afford to be doing all this stuff. I got to do the. So.
Well, if people want to get you to go to do these events, they can give money on the Patreon. That's the best way to help. Go to patreon.com, look for Marathon Investigation, give him a little money so he can keep, booking guests like me and Tony, because we charge a lot of money for appearance fees. And it's a great way to support the show and to give back, and if you would buy Derek a beer, if you saw him in a bar, just buy him a beer once a month. Donate like $3 a month.
Buy me one of those 26.2 Boston, brews that are. Yeah. I wrote about. I put a post up that you had to. There's Boston breweries did a and Runner's World did an article say you had to be a finisher to drink this beer. So I posted that, hey, if you drink this without finishing, I'm gonna find you. And somebody thought I was serious. So whatever.
Yeah, well, that's what people say at races now. They go, somebody better call that marathon investigator.
Right, then it was working, but like I said, I think I'm being almost too successful because now I can't. Now anytime I email anybody, they just like freaking go off on me, and they think it's So I was I kind of had a good little, nice pocket of, the right amount of popularity where I could like email people without just them totally freaking out, or send a friend request so I could stalk them like I do, and they accept it. Now it's just, they hear from me. It's like, I'm like Chris Hansen knocking on your door or something, but oh well.
You're a celebrity now. You were on Inside Edition, and the Dan LeBatard show. Come on, like. Everybody's going to watch every step you take now.
I don't want. Yeah, well, like I said, I did the Flying Pig, and I can't prove that I did it last year. No one's questioning my 6 hour and 45-minute marathon, but my GPS died, and so it's not. So I have no GPS proof that I did it because I was so slow. I've upgraded my watch since then, and somehow I'm not in any photos. Probably because the photographers packed up by the time I got to them, except for the finish line. So it's. But if I start missing timing mats, or if I if I improve to something like 4 hours and 45-minute marathon, people are going to be all over it. They won't believe it. So we'll see.
All right. Well, help them out on the Patreon.
Yeah. Yep. And you help listen. Make sure you listen to Scott's podcast, 10 Junk Miles, and Tony. Tony has a podcast now too. Tony, where can they find it?
I do. Everybody's got a podcast.
I know.
On iTunes. Yeah, it's on iTunes. It's called The Ultra Diner. We've done a couple interviews. We did Ken Michelle. We did Gabrielle Popes, who has some ridiculous story about getting to Badwater last year. She almost died on the way to Badwater and showed up like just in time to start the race and still finished it. And had like 4 injuries, it seems like, along the way. So we're going to do Frank McKinney tomorrow, and then we got you, Derek, next week.
Yes.
So we're trying to ramp this one up a little bit and make it something.
Very
awesome.
good.
Well, download it on iTunes and download this, and until next time.
Thank you for listening to the Marathon Investigation Podcast. Have a questionable result to report? Visit marathoninvestigation.com to contact us, or email Derek at results@marathoninvestigation.com.
Another case closed for the Marathon's silent guardian.